To start this first lesson, we need to have SolidWorks running. So if you don't yet have SolidWorks open, go ahead and open it now. With SolidWorks open, we're ready to open up our first SolidWorks file. Opening a file in SolidWorks is very similar to opening a file in any other Windows-based program. We can open a file by either selecting the Open icon or by selecting Open on the File menu. To access the Open option on the File menu, you may need to make your menu bar visible. Making the menu bar visible is a relatively simple process. All we need to do is hover over the SolidWorks text in the top left corner. When I move my mouse off of the SolidWorks text, the menu bar again collapses. However, if I click the SolidWorks text or move my mouse over one of the menu items, then the menu bar will no longer disappear when I move my mouse off of it. On the menu bar, you should see the thumbtack. The thumbtack is a universal symbol in SolidWorks for keeping a menu or feature active. I'd only suggest pressing the thumbtack to keep the file menu expanded if you have an aspect ratio greater than 1280 by 1024, because it will cause problems later on down the road when more items are added to this section of the SolidWorks interface. Now, getting back on track, select the file menu and select Open. The Open window will appear differently for you than it does for me if you're using Windows XP or Windows 7, because I'm using Windows Vista as my operating system. However, the basic functionality is the same. To start, you need to browse to the folder containing your Inspirtech files for the Fundamentals training. When you have found the SolidWorks 2010 Fundamentals folder, open the folder labeled 2 Introduction to SolidWorks. Next, we're going to open 2.1 Introduction to Parametric Solid Modeling. In the 2.1 Introduction to Parametric Solid Modeling, you should have a long list of files. You may notice that all of the file names follow a numbered naming sequence. This is important to remember because SolidWorks does not work well if you have multiple files with the same name. So it is very important that the naming convention you use for your SolidWorks files does not leave the potential for duplicate file names. A file saved as base or bearing, for example, is something you should avoid. I find it a best practice to name the files using its part number. In the case of this training, files will be named using the chapter and lesson number. Now, we are looking for the main assembly, and to help pinpoint the file we're looking for, I'm going to select the file filter in the bottom left corner of the Open window to filter the list. If you're using Windows XP, the file filter dropdown will be below the file name box instead of to the left of it. Now, at the top of the file filter list, we can filter files to all SolidWorks file types or specific SolidWorks files, such as parts, assemblies, and drawings. The bulk of the list contains file types for many of the more dominant CAD standards, including DXF, Parasolid, and STEP, and some native file formats such as Inventor and Solid Edge parts. At this time, we're not going to go into importing file types other than SolidWorks files, but it would be a good idea for you to familiarize yourself with some of the other file types that SolidWorks can open. Instead, we only want to see assemblies, so we're going to click SolidWorks Assemblies on the list. Our list of files should now be reduced down to 5 assemblies. And in connection with this, I do want to quickly point out that I've gotten myself into a panic more than once by trying to open a file with the wrong file filter type set. So before you panic and think that your file has been deleted, make sure that you have the appropriate file type filter set. If you're opening a part file, you don't want the filter set to assembly because you're not going to be able to see your part file in the open dialog. Well, with that said, let's go ahead and open SWFund 10 ED 2.1 by double-clicking it. With the file open, we're ready to move on to learning about how to work with it. So leave it open and let's move on to the next step of the lesson.